Any? This is our last, the 15th session on this book, The Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe, the story of Walter Russell. It's entitled Life Triumphant. And it's the day we're going to wrap it all together for you. So let's just take this final journey. If you're enjoying this series, please click the like button. You can subscribe to our channel. And you can also feel free to share it with all your friends. If you wish to make a donation to Unity Orlando, go to our website, unityorlando.org, and hit the Donate Now button. It's time to embark on Life Triumphant. Okay, today the topic is Life Triumphant. Life Triumphant. All fall, I've been having fun. Some of you have too. For those of you who haven't, this too shall pass. And it's going to pass today. This is the wrap-up. This is the final kind of bring it all together, recap a few things, and talk about what it is to live life triumphantly. So, I'm going to read one last little passage from this book, The Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe. They're quoting Walter Russell. To those who do find that inner joyousness which comes from that miracle of discovery of the self, capital S on this, which is within every man, comes something also which is greater than success. To them comes the life triumphant. Let us define what I mean by that. The successful man is one who is considered to have made a success of his life according to modern standards, which include the accumulation of money, properties, and an honorable place in the world for notable achievement and financial worth. In other words, the successful man is generally conceived to be one who accumulates value which can be rated by Bradstreets. But there is something still greater than all of that. There is the life triumphant, which transcends all material success. The life triumphant is that which places what a man gives to the world in creative expression far ahead of that which he takes from it of the creations of others. And it should be every man's greatest ambition to be that kind of man. With that desire in the heart of every man, I'm ready to substitute human being. With that desire in the heart of every human being, there should be no greeds or selfish unbalance, nor could there be exploitation of other men or hatreds or wars or fear of wars. The impregnation of that desire into New Age thinking will be the making of a new race of men, which will mark the next stage of this journey, from the jungle of his beginnings to a full awareness of the light of God, which awaits all humankind on the mountaintop of its journey's end. Okay, life triumphant. This is what he kind of wraps up. He's putting the final goal in front of us at this point. Starts off by saying, you want to live a life that has more value than how much money is in your account, how large your house is, how many possessions you have gathered. He didn't say these were bad things. Please remember, you're hearing from someone who had a lot of these things. Through his life, he demonstrated millions of dollars and spent them expressing himself, expressing his creative talents. It's not that he's making a case for poverty, because quite frankly, he may have started out with nothing, but he ended up really rich. But he's telling you that's not what matters. Says that's of secondary importance. Now, to those of us who don't have riches, we're not convinced right away. But he's saying this is one level of success, but this is not triumph. Triumph is living a life, he says, where you are giving more to the world around you than you're taking. And you go, oh, really? Absolutely. There's no triumph in taking from life, but there is tremendous triumph in making a contribution. You may be able to take care of your needs, and listen, I am not against riches. As far as I'm concerned, wealth is something that each of us is trying to demonstrate in our lives, okay? But it needs to be a byproduct of our even higher purpose. And that being expressing that which is planted in our soul, expressing the potentials inside of us, expressing them out into every project that life hands us. It isn't like we all have to run off and be Mother Teresa, who, by the way, for some reason, never thought she'd lived a really good life. Maybe when you open that door, you see how much you could do, and you never feel overly proud, because though you saw how much you can do, you've seen how much more you could have done. But the bottom line is, life triumphant is lived by people who are joyously alive. Notice he said, who find that inner joyousness that comes from the miracle of the discovery of self. We end up by really talking about this Christ self within us. That you are not this personality. We've said it over and over, but let's drill it home big time now. Because if you're going to live a life that feels triumphant to you, you're going to have to touch something inside of you that is beyond yourself. You're going to have to realize there are greater powers flowing through me than I generate with my intellect or I move with my body. That there is a spirit moving through me, that there's an infinite potential I can dip into within and allow these energies to be infused into my activities, and those activities can become stupendous. Whether this outer being seems to be capable of that or not. Christ in you, your hope of glory. There is something inside of you. That Christ spirit that is far greater than anything that we experience in life. That trough from which we can eternally pull and pour our living water into the world around us. Now, if you'll remember, Russell taught early on, it's humility that allows you to dip into majesty, the majesty of the inner being. Humility that allows you to surrender your outer being so that something inside of you which is greater than you have expressed yourself so far can arise and move through you. Something maybe you don't, as a human being, have complete control over. But do you really want to be this human being? That's the final question. Do you really want to be who you think you are? Or are you willing to be something greater? Because today we're going to say that who you think you are is such a small part of who you are that you're really limiting yourself. And living life triumphant is dipping into that eternal well that's inside of us and allowing this stupendous, majestic, triumphant energy to flow into everything we do. You want to be able to let your Christ self flow into taking out the garbage. You say, no, I just save it for the important things in life. And I got to tell you, there's nothing in life that's that important. It's all part of the passing show. And the Christ light can shine through any of it. And anything that you allow that inner depth, that inner potential to pour into, any small activity or any great activity, becomes radiant, becomes alive with the light of life, comes alive with the glory. It becomes glorious. Now the key is, do you want to make a contribution or do you want to gather things? If you're gathering things, you're trying to build a wall around yourself, a fortress, and say, I'm going to have what I've got. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't gather things. That will be part of expressing yourself. But if that is the purpose, it's not a very triumphant life. But if your purpose is giving yourself to the world, creating beauties, creating something wherever you go, knowing that you are the messenger of God, that you are bringing glory to life wherever you touch it, then there's a sense of transcending all the physical limits that we're dealing with. All the humanness, transcending that humanness, and touching something that is beyond ourselves as we presently know them. And that's wonderful. Doesn't matter how messed up your outer self is. And for those of you who say, I'm not one of the messed up ones, I'm sorry, that's a sign that you are. Because we're all messed up, and that just means you can't see it. This is earth. That's the definition of human. And that's why we want to be more than human. We want to be Christ-like. So, I'll leave it at that, and let's just kind of do some recapping here as to how do you live life triumphant. Well, we've been through some of this. And the first one we're going to throw up there is give more than you take. Give more than you take. Jesus said it in Luke 6:38. Give and it will be given to you, good measure, shaken down and running over. They will pour into your robe. For the measure that you measure, it will be measured to you. I've said there are two types of people in the world. Givers and takers. Say, really? Just two? Yes. Because everyone has a percentage. Remember, this is what he was talking about. He wants your percentage to be over 50%. That you're giving, making a contribution to the world. You are leaving the world a better place because you were here. If you've done that, you've lived a triumph that is not limited to this world and goes on with you through all dimensions of life. This is a transcendent understanding of that sense of triumphing in life, being triumphant. So, be a giver. That's the first step to tapping inner genius, to tapping that inner potential that can do things that so far you've not been able to do. And it's inside of you. This tremendous potential is inside of you. So the first step is to have this keen desire to make a contribution wherever you go, whatever you do. You don't have to do it all. And whether or not people recognize you made the contribution doesn't matter. It's between you and God. And God lives inside of you. So if you know it, God knows it. In fact, God knows it before you do. Giving more than you take creates abundance. That's part of what we don't get. If it is given back to you from life as you give, you always want to be giving more than you take. That is abundance, because you are receiving more. If you're giving more, you're receiving more. In other words, making that contribution on a regular basis is the consciousness that creates abundance. Now, what are you going to give? Let's see. We're going to give things because not to do so suggests a consciousness that is very, very tied to the physical realm. You're going to give money for exactly the same reason. But you're going to give help. You're going to give assistance. You're going to give support. We live in a society where we think that the triumphant state of mind is to always be a leader. And Jesus said, what? The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Those of you who would be a leader, be a servant. In other words, that's just an understanding of what leadership truly is. You are serving. So consequently, serving wherever you go, finding a way to make a contribution. It can be intangible. It can be emotional support. I want to go back to just giving support, period. People want to take the foreground. Behind everyone who's in the foreground are a number of people who are support. One of the things I learned in my life is it is as valuable to be the support as it is to be the one who leads, who takes the front. I know in our society we sometimes don't believe that. But you can't really be a good leader until you've helped someone else succeed, until you've been behind someone and understood what that means. I spent quite a few years in which I rarely took the foreground. I always was behind, doing the best I could to support someone to succeed. And they got all the praise and all of that, but I was there to help them get that. That's why it irritates the tar out of me when people go, I don't want to support. I want to be the one out front. And I'm sitting there thinking, you can't be the one out front until you can learn to support. Then you'll handle being out front with grace. Otherwise, you won't. Emotional support. One of the greatest things you can give to life is joy and happiness. Wherever you go. You're surrounded by people who believe they're not getting enough attention. You say, well, that's how I feel. Then go out and take care of those who don't feel like they're getting enough attention and see what happens in your life. Give what you want to receive. So consequently, there's always someone, someplace to give emotional support to, even while you just walk around and do the things you've got to do in life. If you are happy and you give off joyous energy in places like the bank, the tellers remember who you are. You were one of the bright spots in their day, whether you know it or not. Give goodness. This world needs more than anything people who concentrate on goodness and know what goodness is all about. And so, we go out and say, I will serve humanity. I will give wherever I go, and I'm going to have to ask you to give one last thing. Boundaries. Give boundaries. You're going to give tough love sometimes, just as you're going to give total support at other times. You need to know what needs to be given in the situation. Years ago, there was a set of records, that's how long it's back, called Love, Serve, Remember, in which they were taping an interview with Ram Dass, one of the leaders out of the hippie era. Went to India, got enlightened. Well, actually, went to India, studied under a guru, had a wonderful time, is there going, I feel like I now love life. And then his guru came to him and said, okay, now it's time for you to go home to America. He says, I don't want to. I'm happy up on the mountain. And the guru says, it's easy to be a holy man up on the mountain. It's time to go meet the fire of the marketplace. Can you be spiritual while you're out there in life? That's the real challenge. He said, well, what will I do? And his instructions were this: love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God. So he comes back and he's trying to do this, and he's finding in America it's a real pain in the neck to serve everyone because there are plenty ready to let you do that. He said, I had to come to understand that I am serving the highest within those who are around me and within the world around me. And so when I am there, and a man drops the book on the floor and says, pick that book up for me, and I realize he needs to pick it up himself, I say no. Serve the highest wherever you go. Let's talk about the second ingredient I've got down here. And we've been edging on it all the time. It's be a Christ being. Colossians 1:22, Christ in you, your hope of glory. There is something stupendous inside of you. I don't care how messed up you think you are, or how messed up everyone else thinks you are. The bottom line is, there is something stupendous inside of you. The Spirit of God lives in you. And it lives as that Christ Spirit. That part of you that is a part of the same Spirit that Jesus Christ is a part of. That's the point where we are part of the Christ. And so in the end, what I'm suggesting is that we begin to identify with the fact that we are Christ beings. You say, well, what's it mean to be a Christ being? Aren't we being a little sacrilegious here? We are just embracing it and saying, my being is dedicated to that Christ Spirit within me. I intend to represent that high potential, that infinite potential that is inside of me. Now, I may be a work still quite in progress, but I'm going to remember every single day that I am a Christ being, that there's something inside of me that is beyond myself. And that's why anything is possible in my life. Because there's something inside of me that if I can get beyond myself is stupendous. We want to know that the mind that is in Jesus Christ is in me now. I want to be able to touch it. We want to know that the life that flows through Jesus Christ is in me now. We want to know you will do the things that I have done, and greater things than these will you do. We want to know there are infinite potentials to move through us and to happen through us. And we want to know that anything's possible. We want to unleash this inner creative power into everything we do. And you say, yeah, but how do you do that? Sometimes it's as simple as a thought. It is not I, but the Spirit within that does the work through me just before you begin your task. Sometimes it's remembering, I am a Christ being. This outer being ain't acting like it, but that's what I am. Sometimes it's just moving the attention of your being, the focus of your being, back to the awe-inspiring realization of Christ in you, your hope of glory, of triumph. And if you are a Christ being, you are striving to become the potential, that is, the prototype of a new human being. Jesus Christ was all about initiating a tremendous transition in human consciousness into human beings living at an entirely higher level. He demonstrated that level, and slowly but surely we are moving humanity up behind him to join in that same level. There is a whole new, as Walter Russell said, a whole new race consciousness and a whole new race of human beings that we are creating by allowing the Christ Spirit to surface through us. You say, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to live from the highest ideals that I know. Be true to those ideals. Now, the world will sometimes tell you that you got the wrong ideals. You need to be true to yourself. There are many times that the world looks and says, you're doing it right. And I sit there and I think, you have no idea, though, why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing it for an entirely different reason than you realize. And so will you. To thine own self be true, but make sure there's a big S on it, not a small one. This is not about selfishness or self-centeredness. This is about being true to the highest that is within you. And you're going to etch thought patterns, high-level thought patterns. See, the way we live our lives is what we have to contribute to race consciousness. By that, I'm not talking about colors of skin. I am talking about the human race. Race consciousness. The species consciousness. Okay? We share a consciousness. And those of us who are willing to follow in Jesus' footsteps will help to lift that consciousness and create a greater understanding of what human life on this planet will be. And it starts as simple as knowing on a daily basis that God is in charge. Knowing that it is not I, but the Spirit within that does the work through me. Knowing that when one door closes, another will open. That if God's in charge, all is well, even when it looks really, really threatening. Okay? This is the way we etch into race consciousness a whole new way to think, a whole new way to live. We live as a child of God, a messenger of God. If you know you are a messenger of God wherever you go, if you know you are a child of God in this world but not of it, then you realize wherever I go, my job is to bring peace, bring joy, to do whatever I can, to bring order, to support, to love, and to express the potentials that I feel from within. Remember, Walter Russell did things many people only dream of. At one point, he bought the top Arabian horse ranch in the country because he suddenly became interested in horses. And they told him he was nuts. He was going to lose everything. He would demonstrate money, and then he'd use it for some new wonderful endeavor. In the end, he became one of the top horsemen in the country, added to a whole new level of how equestrianship was happening in this country, and then sold the farm and went on. And made a profit, by the way. If you're giving more than you take when you sell, I think you'll probably get more than you paid. It's the way the law goes. So, if we're living a truly triumphant life, are spending our life creating a new race consciousness. A consciousness that knows God is in charge. A consciousness that knows we are in harmony, not at each other's throats. A consciousness that knows the lion can lay down with the lamb. A consciousness that sees infinite plenty and knows that human beings can live in the midst of that plenty. And sees unstoppable eternal life and knows that healing can take place. A consciousness in which human beings are not trying to dominate the earth, but we are loving and caretaking it. Because that's why we came here, to appreciate the creations of the physical realm, fleeting as they are. So, let's hear about it from Charles Fillmore. Charles Fillmore wrote 3 quotes in 3 different chapters, which I've tied together for 30 years now. An atom-smashing power of mind, page 31. We must not anticipate better social and economic conditions until we have better men and women to institute and sustain those conditions. Interesting thought. You want to change the world, you've got to change human consciousness, or we take it right back to where it was. Number 2, page 39. The work that the overcomer does for the world is to help establish a new race consciousness, new heavens and a new earth wherein dwell righteousness. By being true to his highest understanding of truth, the overcomer never swerves to the right nor to the left for any reason. So the work that the overcomer does for the world is to help establish a new race consciousness. And here's how we do it, page 54 and 55. By declaring and decreeing the spiritual words of Jesus and Jehovah, we send into the ether a spiritual force that shatters fixed states of consciousness, holding millions in evil ways. Anyone who has faith in spirit and the power of the word spoken in faith can send it forth, and like radio oscillation, it will be picked up by receptive minds everywhere. The greatest thing you can give to the world is your happiness, your joy, your optimism, your light. If you live in that state, you're radiating into the thought atmosphere, and people around you who need to tap in are feeling it. You're supporting on the highest level. So let's take it to living the triumphant consciousness. 1 John, that's the letter of John. John 4:4, 1 John 4:4. You are of God, my children, and have overcome, because he who is within you is greater than he who is in the world. That's how you live life triumphantly. You know that which is in me, that self that is in me, is greater than that which is in the world. Now, I may not be, not this outer being, but that which is in me is. You are a multidimensional being, and your Christ self is the core to all those dimensional selves. I know we think this is all there is. This is such a small part of it, it's ridiculous. And yet, it's to be cherished. So what I'm asking is that we quit keeping ourselves in a little box right here and remember, if you keep things in perspective, the looming problems and all the things that seem to tear you apart and seem to say, oh my God, my life is destroyed. In perspective, they just aren't that important. What is important is that you are here, that you are living through this experience, and hopefully cherishing the goodness you can find wherever you are. You're a whole lot more than you realize you are, and so you want to touch that which is in you that is more real than the world. The world is moving on. It is transiting, but you're eternal. If you remember that a part of you is eternal, a part of you is with this world, part of that we claim, actually the part we hang on to tightest is the part that's going to disappear, so quit trying to protect it. He said, he who tries to save his life will lose it. If you try to live in this section of your life, I'm sorry, it's gone a few years from now. Get over it. And he who surrenders his life gives away his realization that this is who I am. To embrace that part of himself that isn't going to die. He'll find it. So that's what we want to be doing. We want to reach in and touch the part of us that is eternal and bring it into the life we're living that is transitory. That's how we create glory wherever we go. To everything that would hold us back, we say, this too shall pass, but I'm eternal. Live in the feeling of triumph in life, success. If you know you are a spiritual being, and you know that which is most important is that you make a contribution wherever you go, whether the world appreciates you or not is immaterial. There is a sense of inner triumph that you and God share, that you live in. So we reach that final stage. Live in the light of God. John 8:12, Jesus said, I am the light of the world, and he who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but he shall find for himself the light of life. That's why in the end he says, you are the light of the world. Wake up and realize it. Find for yourself the light of life inside of you. That's the final step in living the life triumphant. You look for the light of life in everything that you do. Say, see the light in your relationships. See the light around your body on a regular basis. See the light in the world and the glory that you see shining through the trees and through nature. See the light in every task you undertake. Be the one who sees the light as we go through this seeming darkness. And of course, now we're going to go back to one of those things that Walter Russell started with. Because you can't be in the light if you're not feeling joy. The most spiritual thing you can do with your life is enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, you're blowing it. I don't care what contribution you believe you're making. If you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not in a state of joy, you're not in those upper realms. So here we are. If you're going to live in the light of God, you're going to live in joy. And you're going to remember how beautiful it is. You're going to enjoy taking every breath. You're going to look at the beauty of nature, and you're going to get distracted a whole lot because you're human. And every time you get distracted, you're going to remind yourself, look for some joy here. I need to remember to enjoy my life. But I'm fighting with so-and-so. Forget it. I mean, sure, continue the fight if you have to, but enjoy it while you're doing it. Don't give up the joy. Yes, there are times we'll have to do things that don't seem spiritual even. What makes them spiritual is that we do it in joy. We do it in peace. We do it in love. And we are concentrating on the goodness. That's living in the light. And of course, Jesus made it clear, let your light shine. Let your light shine. Wherever you go. If you're happy, you're radiant. If you're joyous, you're radiant. If you're feeling that creative potential coming through you, and you see life as an opportunity instead of a problem, you're radiant. Let your light shine, and that is what will change the world as each of us awakens and follows Jesus Christ in letting our light shine. So let me wrap it up. You are much more than that human personality you claim to be. Just get that one straight. Now, through humility, we surrender personality to God, and this allows us to get beyond ourselves, which is the great challenge of life. And when we do get beyond ourselves, we find inner genius. We find there is that inner potential to do amazing things. We find that part of us where the Spirit of God flows freely through us and inspires us from within. That's your inner genius. And then what it is that we realize that in my life, anything is possible. For God is with me. So let's relax and feel that. in my life, anything is possible. All potential for good is open to me, for God is with me, and I am a child of that Spirit that moves throughout the universe. I love my life. And life, that expression of God all around me, loves me. Thank you, God. Amen. This is Reverend Bob Marshall, and I want to thank you for joining us on this journey through exploring how to tap into the secrets of the universe. I also want to thank Brian Eitenmeyer, who provided the music for our program. Thank you again.